Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Sox on Tap.
Tony, my first reaction is just, fuck yes, let's go.
Sox versus the Twins. That's where it all starts. It all starts taking care of business in-house in the Central Division.
That's right, I'm a meatball.
You got to bring that top button swag, baby.
It is always great to beat the Cubs.
And I'm a homer, so I always say they're gonna.
Dallas Keuchel Lamson got some beards that you should be afraid of.
What everybody said when he gets out there, it's me versus the other guy, and I'm going to beat him. So I just love that mentality. It's cool and fucking tough.
Steve, would you say that Tony is mad online?
I would definitely say that.
The White Sox winner.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sox on Tap. This is Tony Marchese. I'm joined tonight by Steve. Steve, this was a rough one, my friend. How you doing, man?
Hey, Tony. I've been better, man. Nothing worse than staying up late to watch a game after a long weekend and seeing the Sox shit themselves. I don't know what else you can really say.
Shit themselves is a good term for this one tonight. This was a little bit rough, like we said. Final score tonight: Angels 7, White Sox 4. The Sox offense did not get the job done at all tonight. They were able to get some runs on the board, just with some interesting ways. We'll talk about that a little bit later, Steve. And let's just jump right into this first inning, man. It's a late one tonight, Steve. It is just after midnight as we're doing this post-game show, so we're going to try and keep this one as quick as we can. There's a lot to break down here, but Steve, we get into the first inning. This is the first start for Dylan Cease this season. Let's get into that first inning, man, because the trouble started early.
Yeah, look, a lot of the same that we've seen from Dylan Cease here in his brief stint with the Sox. Gives up that big first inning home run to Shohei Ohtani. First pitch he sees, tries to do what the Sox have been doing against him for the entirety of the weekend, trying to elevate the high fastball. Ohtani was ready for it, jumped on it, hit that thing to the moon. I don't know if it's landed yet.
I don't know if that one ever lands, Steve. That was just a rocket shot off the bat of Ohtani, and there was no there was not a shortness of a love for Shohei Ohtani from the broadcast crew tonight. And we're going to dive right into that right away because you saw Ohtani come out in the first inning and just kind of cruise through the first inning. And then he gets up to the plate and he just absolutely crushes one. And I think the sound off of that one, Steve, was a little bit exaggerated. Now that ball did leave the yard rather quickly, but they definitely had a camera or a microphone right next to the batter tonight, Steve. That was a loud home run.
I've noticed that over the course of the last 2 or 3 years with any of the ESPN Sunday night broadcasts. The positioning of their mics just makes the impact of the bat and the ball sound a little bit more impactful than it would in just about any other stadium during any other nationally televised or regionally televised game. So it's just very bizarre. It sounds like it's being shot out of a cannon. It just makes anytime that the bat makes contact with the ball, it seems like it's just a really loud contact, and it's excessive at this point. They need to figure that out.
It was, and I wasn't really ready for that one. I don't think, Steve. I'll just be honest. When I heard that Ohtani home run, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, he murdered that thing, and obviously he did. But it seemed like every fly ball that was hit tonight sounded like that, Steve. But as we go on here, Steve, Dylan Cease gives up that home run, gets himself in a little bit of trouble early on in this one, as LA does get out to a 2-0 lead there in the first. They also add another one in the fourth, Steve. Let's talk just overall. You said you had some thoughts on Dylan Cease's first start overall here.
Like I said earlier, it's more of the same, what we saw from him in 2019, 2020. Lack of consistent fastball command, lack of ability to establish secondary offerings. At one point in the second inning, the broadcast crew actually made note of this, that of the first 10 hitters he faced, he only threw 3 first pitch strikes. So falling behind hitters consistently very early on in this game here, and just the overall lack of swings and misses. He threw over 90 pitches today. He got 9 swings and misses throughout the entirety of his performance. for a guy that throws as hard as he does naturally, that has a slider that should be a plus pitch, he just can't generate swings and misses. And you and I were talking about this during the course of the game. The Angels were seemingly on everything all night. And even when he would get ahead of guys 0-2, 1-2, again, having issues putting guys away. This has been a hallmark of Dylan Cease's young career to this point, and it's something that persisted again here tonight. We were kind of told and promised that working with Ethan Katz was going to correct some of these issues. It's still very well made, but through this first outing here tonight, it was more of the same, unfortunately.
Definitely more of the same for him. And one thing that I've harped on, especially all last year, and just with Dylan Cease in general, is that first inning home run. You've seen him settle in. He did kind of settle in here tonight, but it's important for him to get through those first 2 innings and really set a tone, Steve. And it just looks exactly the same version of Dylan Cease that we saw so far, like you said, in his White Sox career. Are you concerned yet? Is it too early to be concerned about Dylan Cease? Just one start. Where are you at? Because I think that, overall there's a tone here that we've had through this first weekend. Are you worried about Dylan Cease at all after start number 1?
After start number 1, no, I'm not. I'm not any more concerned than I was coming into the season. Let me say that. I have some reservations about him and what his future is going to be overall. I think that this is going to be a pivotal season for him. He certainly needs to have some sense of direction here and needs to right the ship now at this point. This is really, I think, the do or die season for him at this juncture here. One start isn't going to really sway me on that here, so I'm going to need a little bit more volume and a little bit more data before I can really make an educated decision on if I think it's time to move on from Dylan Cease here at this juncture. But the one start today, look, we're not off to a great start. But I guess there's no other way to put it.
Yep. Final line on Cease tonight, 4 2/3, gives up 5 hits, 3 runs, all 3 of those earned, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, does give up the homer to Ohtani in the first inning. Cody Hoyer comes in for Dylan Cease there, and Cody Hoyer early on as well this year, Steve, also another guy that just hasn't looked like his 2020 self at all in this bullpen. Let's talk a little bit about Hoyer, Steve. What'd you see out of him tonight?
Just made a bad pitch to Walsh. This is something that would be a theme later on in the game, and Walsh is a guy that in his 2 starts this weekend has swung the bat very well and is proving to be a pretty competent hitter in that Angels lineup, helping to provide a little bit of additional length outside of the top 5 guys that they have in that particular order there. I'm a big Cody Hoyer fan, and everybody knows that I'm a big fan of this bullpen in general and what I think they can be. They did not perform this weekend. It's just that simple. There were certainly a number of defensive miscues that took place behind them that did not help their cause, but overall, they did not pitch to their capabilities this weekend. It's just that simple. I do believe that there is the talent here and that they are going to right the ship, but they didn't get it done here. And that's a big part of the reason why this team is 1-3 now, going on and playing to Seattle.
Yep, moving on. Cody Hoyer, 1 1/3, 3 hits, does give up a run. That was off the home run. Bummer also came into the game, worked a pretty clean inning there despite 1 walk. And then we saw Jose Ruiz time, Steve. As I'm moving on here just through the pitching, we'll kind of cruise through that. The Sox did get 3 runs there in the 5th, Steve. And that one was a little bit of a gift, so to speak, off the Yohan Moncada drop 3rd strike. Do you want to talk, before we get into the back half of this bullpen, let's talk a little bit about how the White Sox got their runs across. Steve, break that play down for everybody. It was just a little bit of luck, I think, rather than some execution, because we'll get into some of this runners and scoring position stuff and the failure to deliver timely hits tonight. But let's touch on that 5th inning there.
Luck would be a little bit of an understatement here. In the all or part of 5 different decades that I've been watching this game, to quote the great Hawk Harrelson here, I have never seen a drop 3rd strike that allowed 2 runs to score. It simply was mind-boggling. I saw this happen, and my first initial thought was, what the hell am I watching here? Between that and the throwing error that allowed the Sox to score their first run, they scored 3 runs without the ability to get a base hit to knock in a run. And it truly is, I think, a sign and a little bit of a testament of how bad the weekend was for them overall, offensively. Aside from that game on Friday night, they just simply have not been able to get a key hit in a pivotal situation to drive in runs. And they were gift wrapped 3 runs today by shoddy defense from the Angels. I mean, there's just no other way to put it.
Yep, 0 for 11 tonight, Steve, with runners in scoring position. That's not going to get the job done this year. And as we said when we opened the show, the Sox lost this ball game. They didn't deserve to win this ball game, in my opinion, Steve, because when you're 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position, you don't deserve to win. It was amazing to me that we were tied in this game in the 9th inning. Like it was just absolutely amazing that we were tied in the 9th inning. We'll talk a little bit about how we scored that run in the 9th to tie it. But before that, Aaron Bummer, like I said, works that clean inning. Then we see Jose Ruiz, Steve. And Jose Ruiz comes in the 8th inning and works himself a clean inning. Looks good. But, my finger was on the trigger there. Like, this is national television, 1-run ball game in the 8th inning. And we've talked ad nauseum about how stacked this White Sox bullpen is. And I know we've seen a couple of guys come in and out, and Tony La Russa has said that he wants to, get everybody involved in this first series out of spring training. But were you shocked at all that Jose Ruiz comes into that game? Or was it just the momentum that felt like this was like Jose Ruiz mop-up time to you?
I would say that I was very surprised to see Jose Ruiz come in that particular spot there. Obviously, the bullpen has been taxed very much this weekend by the starters' inability to go deep into games, as I talked about a little bit earlier here. But to go to Ruiz in that spot was very surprising to me. And then to see him go back out there to start the 9th inning, I think was the thing that surprised me the most. After as you mentioned, he did work a pretty clean and effective 8th inning. So that would have been a nice confidence booster for him. To then see him go back out there to start that 9th inning was very puzzling to me, to say the least.
Yes, it was puzzling, I think, to a lot of people, not just us, to see him go back out to the 9th. Thought we would have saw Liam Hendricks there. Obviously, we didn't. Jose Ruiz out there to start the 9th. And then to face Trout, Tony La Russa pulls a little troll job there, waits till the absolute last second to go out and give Ruiz the hook. And he comes back with Matt Foster, who just absolutely put some gas past Trout, although did miss a pitch in that sequence, Steve, that could have went a long way. So he got away with one right there. So the game could have gotten even further somewhat out of hand at that point in time, had Trout been able to just end it. But we get through that. So we're feeling okay. But then Foster gets himself in another spot. And, Steve, let's talk about how this one ended.
Jared Walsh, got another fastball out over the plate, and they had Mike Trout mic'd up earlier in the game saying that Walsh does not miss fastballs. He did not miss a fastball as he deposited it into the left center field rock pile that they have out there just outside of the reach of Luis Robert. I think you could make a case that it was another poorly timed jump by Luis Robert there. Certainly not an easy play. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think that's a play that could have potentially been made right there. Again, I'm not saying that was something that was easy, that it was an automatic should have been out, but we've seen Luis have a number of issues there, timing his jump at the wall, going back to last season. So from my perspective here, after seeing it once, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at it again here, that could have been a little bit of a timing issue again there from Luis.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to go back and watch that a few times. I did feel like there was the ability for him to catch that ball. I think if he did make that catch, though, Steve, I think it would have been like absolutely spectacular. It would have had to have been timed absolutely perfectly, but that's not to say that it wasn't makeable. But overall, I want to go back and I just want to know what other takeaways do you have from this one? Because I think the first question I have is, this is the end of the series here, Sunday night. Overall takeaways from this game and just this series in general. Where are we at? What's the state of the Sox?
The biggest takeaway for me is that Tony La Russa is not inspiring these guys to hit with runners in scoring position. No, but to be serious here, the offensive approach overall, I think, was just piss poor for the majority of the weekend series here. Aside from that game on Friday night, there were a couple of key circumstances, a key at bats that Buzz and I had talked about during the postgame show. But overall, a lot of the issues that we've seen from this Sox team over the course of the last few years of guys just going up there and just being in swing mode right away, not working counts, not getting a good quality pitch to drive. And listen, this is obviously a very pro Jose Abreu show that we do here. We have to call him out here because Jose Abreu had two key at bats in this ballgame here with opportunities to drive in runs with less than 2 outs, and he did not get the job done. And that certainly came back to bite this team in the ass here tonight. This has not just been a Jose Abreu problem entirely here, but again, this team as a whole needs to clean up the offensive approach here, get themselves into some better hitters counts, and then when they get themselves in those counts, drive the baseball and do some damage. That's the biggest thing. And then the starters, they got to find a way to be giving some more length to their performances here so that the bullpen is not as taxed. Those are my two biggest takeaways.
Steve, I agree with everything you said there. Number one, it's going to be this problem over and over again until we start to see some consistency from the offense, especially with runners in scoring position. I know I saw you in an exchange tonight about the bunt. You hate the bunt. And I feel like we've gone to that type of move the runner over mentality just a few too many times here early on this season, Steve. We're not seeing a lot of extra base hits, driving guys around, just keeping things moving. It seems very station to station, and they're living and dying that way, Steve. It's not exactly a fluid offense by any means. You see some struggles out of Luis Robert early, laying off of pitches that are just shouldn't even be swung at by anybody. And you'd like to see some better plate discipline there. And I think that there's going to be a lot of overreaction early on this season. For as mad as I am about this one, Steve, I do realize that we are 4 games into the season. There's a lot of room for improvement here, but you need to see them start to take these steps early because things are going to start to get serious real quick when we start facing the division again. What are you thinking right now as we head into Seattle, Steve? You talk about the pitching coming together, the offense coming together. Which side needs to step up first, and which one do you think actually will?
I think first and foremost, the offense needs to be the ones to pick things up. They're going to see 2 lefties this 3-game series in Seattle. It's been very well documented, the success that this group has had against left-handed starting pitching going back to last season. So hopefully that is the cure for all that ails here to hopefully get this team back feeling good about themselves, having more quality plate appearances and scoring some runs and hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Because let's face it, this team just as a whole does not take a lot of walks. So they need to hit the ball out of the ballpark in order to be successful. They've done that with great regularity against left-handed pitching going back to last season. So I'm looking to see that continue here as they go up to Seattle. And then it's going to be very interesting to watch Carlos Rodon. This was a guy that had a very strong spring training, much like Dylan Cease did. And will any of the improvements and will any of the changes that he made working with Ethan Katz, will they translate here in the regular season? Because the Sox really need one of those 2 guys to step it up this year at some point. And then the rotation then flips back over to Lucas Giolito and Dallas Keuchel. Again, got to start getting some length out of these starters here, taking some of the load off the bullpen.
Interesting pitching matchup coming up tomorrow night, Steve. Carlos Rodon, Justice Sheffield, you talked about Carlos Rodon's spring training being somewhat impressive, back fully healthy right now. And the Seattle Mariners team, Steve, the only guy on this roster who's faced Carlos Rodon is Kyle Seager. Kind of an interesting note there, considering the fact that the Sox do play the Mariners quite a bit. They have not seen much of Carlos Rodon outside of Kyle Seager, who has just 3 at-bats against him. Meanwhile, the plenty of White Sox have seen Justice Sheffield before. Not looking too hot against him overall, though. But Steve, what are you looking to see here from Carlos Rodon? You talked about his work with Ethan Katz this offseason and through spring. What is it going to take for Carlos Rodon to be successful on the mound on Monday?
For Carlos Rodon, it's very simple. It's all about establishing fastball command, getting ahead in counts with that particular pitch to set himself up to be able to utilize that slider to put hitters away. It's very cut and dry with Carlos Rodon. If he can get ahead with strike one, utilizing that fastball, that's going to open up the at-bats, and he's going to be in a much better position to be successful against a lineup that really doesn't have a whole lot of punch to it overall. Let's just be honest.
Yep, and it's going to be important for him to go 6, Steve. I think that's going to be one of the big things here. You do have kind of a taxed bullpen 4 games in a row so far for the White Sox. You'd like to see Carlos Rodon at least take a little bit of weight off. It wasn't exactly the best first time through the rotation. So you're going to need somebody here to pick up those innings and give these guys some rest. That's what I'm looking for out of Carlos. Just keep us in the ball game, get us through to the 6th inning at least. Anything after that's a gift for the White Sox here. Steve, let's talk about predictions for this upcoming series. What do you think the Sox are going to do here?
I think they're going to get 2 out of 3. They'll find a way to go 3-4 on this road trip, which was not ideal. Certainly could have been better considering the fact that they had 2 games that they gave away here this weekend in Anaheim. They could have easily come back, I think, 5-2 from the road trip. But if you come back 3-4, you just take that for what it is, first 7 games of the year, and then you just put your head down and you get back to brass tacks and you get to work here for the home opener on Thursday.
Loving it, Steve, and that's exactly what I'm going with in my prediction as well. Taking 2 out of this series is going to be really important for this team, especially the morale of the club as we head back for the home opener. If we start to get into that, 1-2 or getting swept by the Seattle Mariners, we're going to be in a world of hurt on our way back here, and things are going to get even uglier than they are right now. Let's get into
White Sox Twitter will just be a tremendous place to be.
Yes, and it already has started to get there, Steve. It already has started to get there. We've seen some interesting things that have been coming out of the woodwork already 4 games into the season. Can't say that you or I have done anything to stoke that fire by any means, but it's gonna get a little bit more interesting. So for the health and safety of all of us, let's hope for 2 out of 3 up in Seattle. Now, there was one thing that you drew a line on in the sand today, and I'm going to back you up on this one. We get into the 8th inning, and the fans out in LA started to do a little something that I think we've seen this happen at Guaranteed Rate Field back in 2019. Last year, there were no fans, so we didn't get any of that nonsense. But Steve, you have the floor to talk about something. I'll come in with my takes afterwards, but let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay. Anybody that knows me, anybody that follows me on Twitter, on social media, knows that I'm a big attitude late 90s era wrestling fan. I'm an NWO guy. I always have, always will be. It is for life. Okay. And so when I say that as an NWO guy, I am not a Ric Flair guy. I have hated Ric Flair since I was 7 years old. Cut the woo bullshit out. I've had it. I'm done with it. Enough. All right. You start doing this stuff, you deserve to be jackknife powerbombed through a table. I've had it. Enough.
Steve, I agree, and I'm not even a wrestling fan. I don't know the whole Ric Flair thing. I know that the woo thing is from Ric Flair, but it is one of the most obnoxious things to hear at the ballpark or coming through your television while watching a baseball game. In my opinion, this is just my opinion here. This might come off as a hot take or a meatball take to some. It is more disruptive and annoying than the wave in a baseball stadium, hearing that, because it not only affects the at-home experience, it also affects the in-stadium experience, and it's just annoying as fuck. So that is like the worst thing I can hear during a baseball game. So I support you 100% there.
Yeah, very, very well said. Cut the shit out. All right, find something. Let's find some new way to express yourself. If we're in a late inning situation or in an extra inning situation here, no more of this woo bullshit.
No more wooing stuff. All right, so we've taken a stance here. I don't know how Buzz and Johnny feel about it, but we've taken the stance here. We are anti-woo on this podcast. Steve, before we close this one down, we're going to have to get some picks to click for Monday night. So who are you rolling with?
All right, so with Justice Sheffield on the mound here, I am going to go back to Jose Abreu. I'm going to go back to Pito. He had a rough night tonight. He's the reigning MVP. He destroys left-hand pitching throughout the course of his career. So I think he's going to get back on track here. And I think he is going to put one over the fence here. He's going to hit a dinger tomorrow.
I like it. I am going with Yohan Moncada tomorrow night, Steve. I believe he does have 2 hits off of Sheffield in his career. I think this is the guy that needs to get things going. We've seen a little bit of a sluggish start out of Yohan Moncada so far. I'd like to just see him have a solid day at the plate, maybe rip a double, maybe leave the yard a little bit, but just be productive. I want to see at least, 2 for 4, 2 for 3 night with a walk. Just get on base and start getting that moving a little bit before we get back home. So I'm going Yohan Moncada, Steve.
I like it. Cuban connection, baby. Let's make it happen.
Hey, let's have them both go off. We need a big offensive night. I think that's what we need. I think when I asked that question, what's going to be more important for the Sox to get going? You said the offense. I absolutely agree. We need to see some runs being scored, and I think it's more troubling. I think the Sox have the bullpen depth to get through little stretches like this, and not every night is going to be filled with bad defense. So I think we'll see some of that bullpen luck turn around a little bit, but that offense just needs to start clicking, and it needs to start with guys like Yohan Moncada and Jose Abreu, who have been here a little while. Another few notes from tonight. Tim Anderson did leave this game in the first inning after legging out ground ball. And came up a little bit lame, looked like a hamstring. I believe that's what was reported. So he is day to day. We'll have some updates on him over at ontapsportsnet.com. I'm sure as they're released. There is an article up already about him leaving the game. That'll have all the information as it becomes available. Steve, this wasn't a fun one to talk about. It's after midnight. It's Monday morning now. And the Sox just had a rough series in LA to start the year, but hopefully we don't have to talk too much more about games like this one tonight, although it's always a pleasure talking White Sox baseball with you, Steve. That's all I have for tonight. Cheers, my friend. Do you have anything else before we close this one down?
No, just like you said, look, bad start to the year. You just got to flush it. You got to move on. Go to Seattle, take care of business.
You said it best, Steve. Well, with that, thank you for tuning in to the Sox on Tap postgame presented by On Tap Sportsnet and Grandstand. Steve, say it how we always do. White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.